History is full of rich connections to God and the great outdoors He created for us. I'm on a mission to share these experiences with my children, alongside other fathers who want to introduce their sons and daughters to the beauty and bounty of the world where we are blessed to walk with our Heavenly Father in His garden. My name is Jacob Whitley. This is Fathers and the Great Outdoors.
You all right going in there?
All over these things.
You got some good blood?
Oh, the deer.
You found him? Dude! Let's go, brother!
He's gonna take a long time to
How about that, man?
Welcome to Fathers and the Great Outdoors. As always, if you want to support this content, you can visit greatoutdoorspodcast.com. Check out some awesome merch that we have on there, including things like this hat and any camping, hunting, and fishing supplies as well. Today we have David Petty. How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good. So just to jump into things, can you tell me a little bit about kind of your earliest memories in the outdoors?
Yeah, man. My dad tried to take me hunting when I was about 6 or 8 years old, and I was just too fidgety. And so we took up squirrel hunting, and because I could move around and have some fun with it, and it could be short-lived. So did some squirrel hunting, and finally graduated to about 9 or 10, being able to sit in a tree stand a little bit longer. And so he put me in a makeshift blind over some corn, and lo and behold, it happened pretty quick. He dropped me off, and by the time he got to his tree stand, a shot was fired. And so I finally got my first doe on the ground. And from that point on, it was all I could eat. I was eating it up, man. I just had to be hunting something or fishing or something outdoors that was challenging that I had to overcome adversity to get a hold of.
What do you mean by overcome adversity?
Just the fact that I was young, I didn't know anything, so I had to figure things out on the fly as well because my dad wasn't one to want to sit with me. He wanted to kind of put me where I belonged, and then he would go to his spot because he was obviously chasing bigger deer and I was chasing any deer. So it was one of those things where I had to kind of adapt and figure out what this whole game was about at 9 or 10 years old. I didn't know anything. So sitting in a makeshift ground blind or in a really short ladder stand or something like that it was a different challenge for a kid. And I now as a dad looking back, I'm like, what was my dad thinking? But it was fun, and now I look back, I'm like, man, that was amazing that he trusted me with a firearm in that situation to do it. Now, given he wasn't too far away, but it did work out, and I look back, and those are some of those fond moments of my childhood, getting introduced to deer hunting or hunting in
Right.
general.
I take it by your reaction, you're not planning on putting your kids through that?
Oh no, 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 no. No, I make it pretty easy for my oldest boy.
Yeah. How many
Or I
kids do
try to
you
make
have?
it easy. I have two sons. Easton is 6 and Beckett is 2.5.
Are you done there?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. These two kids are wild and crazy. I thought I was gonna have to kind of make some stuff work tonight because they had a headbutting contest on accident, and so it was Katie bar the door over here for a little while.
Yeah. My just before sending you a message, my daughter came downstairs because she had just kicked my son, which she would think my son would be the one to come down, but they had to
Right.
be separated and
Now,
put
now,
back to
how old are
bed.
you? How old are your
So
children?
my daughter is 3. She'll be 4 in January, and my oldest son, I should say, just turned 6. I have a
Okay.
1-year-old as well, but he's locked away in the crib.
I understand.
Yeah.
I understand that for sure.
So when you talk about your transition from I guess small game to big game, was it just
Mhm.
squirrel? Did you do any birds or any fowl of any type?
No, I do that until probably 2015. So as an adult, I started that. No, at a young age, it was pretty much just squirrel. We tried to get on some rabbits, but not a lot of people around where we were. In this area, I guess, were running beagles at that time that we knew, um, and couldn't really get access to anything like that. But my dad, he just grew up deer hunting. He didn't turkey hunt. He didn't do anything but deer hunt. So it was that or nothing.
That makes sense.
Yeah. But I'm glad that as I've gotten older, I've transitioned to a lot of things. The funnest thing I've ever done was rabbit hunt over some dogs. That was the absolute funnest thing I've ever done. But me and some friends, we try to go on a duck hunting trip every year around Christmas time. It's getting harder to do with as our kids get older
Yeah.
and more kids happen. But it's still deer and turkey for the most part.
Is that all in North Carolina, including the ducks?
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll go hunt some sink boxes out in Ocracoke.
Okay. Very cool.
Yeah.
Keeping it very local.
Yeah, I try to take everything we have in state. I mean, we got a lot to offer here in North Carolina.
Oh yeah, I'm originally from California, which
Oh, okay.
some of the opportunities I took for granted. Like there's two turkey seasons, so I definitely
Really?
when I found out that there's a really small
Yeah.
single turkey season here, I was like, oh no. But
Yeah.
that aside, there's definitely a lot more opportunity for especially big game in North Carolina.
Mm. Well, and it's I really like it because we can go hunt ducks on the coast, and then you can be in central North Carolina and hunt anything from deer to bear. And then of course when you go to Western Carolina, there's more opportunity for bear, and then it's just a different terrain, so it adds another challenge there as well.
Right. Is that when you go coastal? Is it sea duck you're going after?
No, we go after. I still like puddle ducks. A couple of my buddies, they keep trying to twist my arm to go see ducks, but no, I'm still a puddle duck guy.
Yeah, I was just curious because I've heard that sea duck are not the best eating.
That's what I've heard. That's why I don't care to go after them. I'm
Yeah,
not the biggest duck fan in general, but if I'm going to eat
okay,
anything, it's going to be a puddle duck.
that makes sense. You want to limit what you're willing to eat then.
Yeah.
What about fishing?
Crazy enough, that's what I started doing a little bit after I became a teenager. Of course, it was a lot easier to get places to fish than it was to hunt. As a teenage boy in this area, people just thought you were wild and crazy, which they were mostly right. And then the flip side of it is everybody's got a farm pond in Central North Carolina, so you could catch some really big fish there. So I transitioned to predominantly fishing for largemouth, and then uh, Easton really just got into it really this summer, I guess I would say. He's asked about it before, but he's just never had the patience to do it, to just sit out there and watch that bobber floating on the water. He always wanted
Hmm.
to reel it in, and he just never gave time for the worm to die. So here recently, we've really got on a hot spot close to our house, and so man, it is awesome to see him because he wants to do everything by himself, worm the hook and throw it out there. He still has a little bit of a patience problem waiting for the bobber to sink, but he's really enjoying it. And so now we have something to do all the time. Turkey hunting's still kind of tough on him, but he loves fishing right now.
Very cool.
It's a little bit more obviously engaging. You can walk around, you can talk, you don't have to sit down or be cold or anything like that. But he really enjoys that part of it.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's a little more casual, I guess, in
Yeah,
comparison to hunting.
yeah.
What about the coast fishing in the Atlantic?
Crazy enough, we went on and this was my first time too. In September, we went on our first red drum trip with another buddy and his dad and his son that's the same age.
Hmm.
And crazy that's going to be a yearly tradition now. It was an absolute blast catching them monsters. I had never done anything like it. I just always caught freshwater largemouth or crappie or anything like that. And then all of a sudden, these red drum just changed everything. And and Easton loved it. He couldn't reel any in because they were so daggone big,
Hmm.
but he liked being on the boat. It was just a cool experience. He was just one of the guys, so he was really eating all that up. But that's gonna be a yearly tradition we tap into.
Yeah, There's a special excitement about the. I mean, bass are pretty aggressive, but I feel like for the most part, most ocean fish give you a pretty good fight.
Yeah, we were catching fish that were his weight and taller than him, so he just couldn't. He sees it on TV, but he just couldn't comprehend how big these things were. And these were the ones that you obviously have to catch and release. They weren't of size. I don't understand all that size stuff, but um, that was a just a whole new world for him, and he ate it up.
Yeah.
And he liked the captain of the boat was cutting up the fish on the back and throwing some in and trying to chum in the water, and just being a 6-year-old boy, he just wanted to see all the things.
Right.
So,
Yeah. What was it? Last spring, I guess. We were back in California visiting some family, and I took a charter out onto the Pacific, and those guys are always awesome down in that wharf. And my son was basically the deckhands would hook the fish, hand the rod to my son. So in a way, my son actually ended up catching more fish than anybody else on the boat because all the deckhands are just handing him the rod.
right.
So
I bet he was loving it.
yeah, that was a fun experience for him.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. And that's what it
Um,
takes. It takes those kind of encounters where the older guys are looking out for the younger kids, and it's fun to watch. It's almost funner than catching the fish yourself to see the excitement just in every aspect of it.
yeah, kind of relive your own first experience.
No doubt, no doubt. Now I know what it looked like when I was that age, going crazy over whatever it was at that time.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's a lot of fun.
No doubt.
Um, so you mentioned at least turkey hunting with your son. I think I want to say I saw some photos of even some deer hunting.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about how you introduced. I guess at least your oldest. I don't know if your youngest also hunts or not.
No, he ain't no way. He probably won't hunt till he's 20, the way that kid is. Lord have mercy. Um, took Easton for his first time. I think it was last spring when we tried to get him on his first turkey through youth. I bought a blind specifically for it, put it at a property that I had permission to hunt. Never touched it, never did anything. Ran a trail camera up there all the time, on a wheat field, and then in the pine timber behind all that stuff. And so I mean, that place is just covered up with turkey. And I just left it completely alone, and it was all his to have. And we went out there one morning, and his patience weren't there. His stillness, obviously, with turkeys, you got to be a different kind of still. Even in a ground blind, noise and fidgetiness can still trigger a turkey to just bolt or just not get tight-lipped and not come around. But he liked hearing the owls hoot. He liked hearing the gobbling on the roost. He liked every aspect of it. It was just really tough because you hear them, but you hardly see them until
Right.
it's go time, and it can happen that fast. And of course, as an adult, I had a buddy with me calling while Easton was sitting in my lap, and we were just trying to make this work. He was excited about the shooting of the 410 and all those things, but about 30 minutes after legal light, after it cracked daylight, he was like, "All right, I'm ready to go." And so, of course, you're trying to hunker him down because birds are starting to gobble and everything's starting to come alive in the woods, but he wasn't having it. And so we went on a trip. Actually, I think we went on two or three. We tried to stay more local, right here behind the house, and it just wasn't his time. I can realize that. I'm man enough to realize that he's not. If it's not right, it's not right. We're doing more damage than good. Trying to beat him down with still, 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 quiet, 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 still, still, still. It's easier just to try to wait for another day. And so we tried it again this spring, and it was much better. And we almost closed the deal a couple times, and we just obviously the bird just don't read the script all the time. It's the exception of the rule to actually kill a turkey.
Yeah.
But we tried it. We came close, and so if we keep progressing like this, I'm hoping that spring of 25 is his year to smack one.
Yeah. I wrote an article. I'm trying to remember. I don't know if I remember mentioned how many years it took me, um, just like, at least in California, trying to find a turkey. I want to say it was like 3 years in. Like I saw turkey side of the road and stuff, But I think it was about 3 years in before I actually shot my first turkey. It just took a while to track them
It
down.
it's tough. I didn't hunt them for the longest time as until I was in my mid to latter 20s. And a buddy took me one day, and it at that property, it was fish in a barrel. You could just go out there and really just shoot one anytime you wanted to. And so I
Hmm.
was spoiled for a while, and I was like, man, this is pathetic. So I didn't go for the next few years, and then the bug hit me again, and then I got humbled really quick. Like, dude, you don't realize how good you had it when you were killing them every year because the next few years I was skunked. Like you said, you could hear them and you could see them driving in and you could see them driving out, or you'd see them at 80 yards or something like that, just out of shotgun range. And it just never worked. I mean, I got my best friend killed his first bird this past spring, and he's the same age as me. We're 38 years old, and he killed his first bird.
Yeah.
And it's just been rough for him. And so I try to tell Easton that same thing is, hey, look, man, patience, patience, patience. It doesn't happen like that very often where they just come in and you get to send the bird down.
Was that the same property that you were getting skunked at?
No, 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 no. The property, the gold mine the gold mine was right here across the street from the house, and actually they stopped allowing anybody to hunt over there because they built some houses adjacent to it.
Hmm.
And so I'm sure if you went over there, especially right now, since nobody's hunted it in a few years, you could probably just drum up that luck again. But no, it was a couple other properties I was jumping around to, and I just thought turkey hunting was that easy. You just hoot at them, they call back, they hit the ground, and you scratch something or use mouth call or anything like that, and they just jump on the barrel, and it's not how that works.
Right.
And
I'm sure
so,
to an extent it at least would probably still be a good place to not necessarily practice calls because it sounds like they responded to anything, but at least
mhm.
see if you made a certain type of call or certain noise or certain pitch, how they reacted to at least kind
Yeah,
of if you're getting into calling.
yes,
I
and
imagine that would help.
I hadn't called very much myself. I've really got on the calls as of late because obviously I got kids and my wife went with me this spring. So I invested in some good calls from a local maker right here around the corner. And I was trying to do some video of her and I turkey hunting together. Obviously, we don't get to hunt very much. We've got two kids, so childcare and all that can be a little challenging, but it worked one day. And I had roosted him the day before, and we went out there and he was exactly in the same spot, so nothing happened. Got down, everything was working. He did work off just a little bit further in the wrong direction. Um, and I was calling and calling and calling, and me and him were just talking. I mean, it was the perfect show for camera and the little film that we were trying to shoot just for our luxury. And all of a sudden, man, he got within shotgun range just behind me, and I thought he was coming around, and it was one of those where he was on top of you, and we couldn't move. But long story short about all that was when I looked back at the video, we didn't get a shot. He saw the Jake with the hen decoy, didn't like Jake. He gobbled right behind us. The next gobble was about 150 away. So he got out of Dodge quick. So he must have been used to being bullied. But
Mm.
when I got back to the house and I plugged the camera in and listened to my call and I realized how bad it sounded, I was like, how in the world did that turkey think that I was something special and come in? Because it was terrible. So that's the good thing about it is sometimes you can sound terrible and still get it done. But it um it was a good thing to it was a confidence builder for me to be able to call that bad and still get a turkey to respond in a positive way.
Yeah. I've even heard stories like that about bucks sometimes, where they just make noises just with their mouth, little short noises, probably just to
Right.
get them to whip their head around. But it's funny what works sometimes.
Yeah.
So is that kind of the extent of it for your son right now is turkey? Has there been anything else?
No, not really. He's tried to do some squirrel hunting. It's a little bit harder, more so just right here in the backyard. If they run through the yard or run through the trees, he'll get his 22 out and go out back and shoot a little bit. Hadn't had any luck with that yet because obviously I got to be a little bit cautious right here at the house. We do have some neighbors,
Mm-hmm.
and so I can't just have him spraying BBs and pellets all over the place. But he's really dove into the fishing. I think fishing in upcoming warm season is going to take over the hunting. Long term, it's going to be more fishing, but I definitely think he's going to. His goal this year is to shoot a turkey. He shot 4 deer, and we've recovered three, and he's caught some fish now. And so I think the next one that he really wants to check off is the turkey, the one I killed this year. I took to his school so that he could see it, and he just won't let it go. He's like, the only thing I haven't done is killed a turkey, and I'm like, man, I get it, dude. You're six, but I get it. The
Yeah.
hunger's there, and so I'm trying to preserve all that, and I'm trying to really capture it all and just teach him patience and enjoy the moment, enjoy the each fish you catch, enjoy each hunt you have, even the fishing trips with no fish. Just take it in for what it is, and if you get to catch one or shoot one or whatever you're doing, that's all the better. But it's not a guarantee, and sometimes you just gotta just take the whoopings when they come, but enjoy that moment.
Yeah. Did you say that he did get deer?
Yeah, so last year he shot his first 2 deer, um, at a little small piece of property that some family friends they allow us to hunt over there. So he shot 2 small bucks early gun season last year, and Saturday he shot a step up buck that we needed taken off the property, and so he shot that Saturday morning.
Very cool.
Yeah, man. He was pretty pumped about it. It was a rough one too. We were sitting in a hay barn behind some equipment as a makeshift blind, and he gets in there and he finds a yard rake in there, and he starts raking up hay, and you can tell that's loud, and it's 6:30 in the morning, and he's in there just raking up hay and banging into stuff, and just being a 6-year-old kid. And I'm of course about to blow a gasket. And because I've toted all this stuff from the truck to the barn and trying to get covered up and trying to be quiet so that it happens, just to make sure I'm trying to do everything I can possibly do. And next thing you know, the buck we ended up taking, it was a 4-pointer with a hanger off the right side, and then on the left side he just had a little stub, and it wasn't broken. It was like that through velvet through the summer months.
Hmm.
I don't know if he was hurt last year or what, but it never produced. And so, of course, he comes trotting through with one thing on his mind, and we saw him in Easton. He couldn't help himself. He had to take it off safety.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So what? I'm sure it was a big deal for the process of his first deer last year.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy. We were messing around the house, and so right around dusk time, that like the dark 30 hour, we don't live far from it, so we were able to just drive over there. And I was waiting for that gray light to get over there. I kind of wait for gray light in the morning so I can see in the field, and I wait for gray light in the evening so I can see in the field as well. And there was a couple deer down in the food plot I had last year. Was amazing. It was just a great year for food plots. This year was a bust. But there was a couple. I think it was a small 6-pointer and then a spike at the bottom of the field. And my nephew was with me also, and so Easton, of course, wanted first shot. So I set the tripod up, and put the 6.5 in there. And he'd never shot it before. He'd shot a 243 that was a similar setup, but he'd never shot this gun. And so he got on the gun, and I have a picture on my phone that I show him all the time of, you can just get off Google. It's got the scope and the crosshairs, and it's right behind the deer's shoulder. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's all those things because, of course, if dad tells him something, it's, yeah, dad, I know, yeah, dad, I know, yeah, dad, I know. But if I show him something, it's Bible. So I showed him the picture. I was like, this is where it needs to be. This is where it needs to be. And it was there until he pulled the trigger. And of course, he's flinching and jerking and snatching. And so it wasn't the best of shots. It was back. It was a little bit of a gut shot, but it was a shot, and the deer never moved. I mean, of course, it did a lot of damage on the inside, but the deer never moved. It just fell right over. And then my nephew tried to shoot. And he's never shot a gun before, and so we were trying to make that happen somehow, and he missed, clean miss.
Hmm.
So that was Easton's first deer, man. And crazy enough, I had my phone in my pocket. I had my phone in my pocket Saturday morning too. I had my camera out, and in that moment, man, you just kind of get in the zone. You just turn into hyper focused dad. And so my phone stayed in my pocket. The camera was sitting on the hay baler. You never got footage of any of it. And so last year, what I remember is after he shot, my nephew was getting on the gun to see if another deer would hang around because they all kind of jumped around. And I just looked over, and Easton was doing one of these numbers.
Huh.
He just couldn't contain himself, the excitement and the shaking. It was something that I will never forget, of course, but I wish I had something to. And of course, a lot of people, older timers, are going to say it's the stuff that you can't rewatch, that you just have to relive in your memory is what it's going to be about. And so that's a big memory that I remember of his first deer, and we got it skull mounted above his bed.
Hmm. That's a lot of fun.
Yeah, man, it was amazing, and it's just grown. This time it was he just started after he shot that deer. He was just, man, that was a great shot. I put it right there where you told me to, did it. And he's just talking like he's one of the guys off TV on the Outdoor Channel, just like he's been there 1,000 times. I'm like, all right, buddy.
Yeah, that's what kids do.
Yeah.
Does he have anything on his hunting bucket? I mean, obviously turkeys sounds like a big one. Is there anything else that he wants to check off his list?
He's really excited and anxious to get into waterfowl. He wants to shoulder a gun. He wants to go to the coast with us. We got pictures of me and the buddies and some ducks. I got a pintail mount in his room as well. And so he's really excited to get into that stuff. Obviously, that's going to take some time for him to be able to shoulder and swing a gun safely. So I got to kind of guard him from that right now. And of course, because it's my bucket list thing to hunt is an elk. I want to hunt an elk so bad I can't stand it, and so I voice it and I talk about it and I watch it on TV or watch it on YouTube, and so he watches it with me and he wants one, and of course likes to hear him bugle, and it's kind of like turkey. If you get them right, they like to talk back to you, and you can interact with them a little bit more than you can whitetail. And so I think waterfowl is probably close second behind turkey, and then elk is, I think, just that thing, just because Dad wants to do it, I want to do it.
Right. I'm sure I'll get a lot of that.
Yeah, but in California, have you ever went on a, not in California maybe necessarily, I don't know what's out there on the West Coast, but any elk hunts around that way that you've been on, or?
So that time I mentioned that I got my first turkey
Mhm.
would have been the closest I've ever been to an elk. It was just we were kind of driving. It was like a truck, but there was like a makeshift bench in the bed, so I'm
Oh
like
yeah.
sitting up top above the truck a little bit. And
Right.
then on this hillside, like right as the sun's rising on the other side of the hill, is just this elk family climbing up. They stop, turn, look at us, and then just disappear over the hill. And I was like, I got to come back here and hunt one of those. And the guy was telling me that particular type of elk, sorry, particular type of elk. I think it was a toll elk. And I guess the tags are really hard to get in California.
Gotcha.
But that's definitely on one of my bucket lists too.
Yeah. It's me and my buddies, we keep talking about switching from waterfowl to try to draw a tag somewhere and go hit public, but I don't know about all that. Everybody tells me if you're going to do it for the first time, you might as well get a guide and go
Right.
do the whole thing. But obviously, it's expensive and it's not close to here.
Yes. Yeah. Well, ideally, this podcast takes off, and then I could use the income from that to go on a guided elk hunt.
I like it. I like it.
Yeah,
I hope it does.
that'd be fun. As far as the deer go, was
Mhm.
your son involved at all with like the field dressing?
Um, no. So this past one, I've been dropping them off at a processor because that day last year it just I didn't have time. I didn't have the stuff set up. It was one of those we were really going to glass a field, and it just so happened that we ended up hunting a deer and it's shooting it. I know a lot of people have frowned upon it, but it worked out that way. Saturday morning, I knew we had family pictures later that about midday time, and so by the time he shot and got everything together, and it's just that's the work starts after you pull the trigger. So I
Right.
took it to a local processor, and you can drop it off whole deer there. Now, what he was a part of is I kept the head to do ourselves, and so he did see me kind of cape the head out, cape the skull out, and do all that stuff. And so he was a part of that a little bit. You could tell he was cautious, but very curious at the same time. He was one of those where he's kind of rubbernecking, almost like a doe coming
Mm-hmm.
around, kind of seeing what you're doing, but he doesn't want to see all the nasty, but he does want to see the nasty. And so it was a curious but cautious kind of encounter. But he says he wants to do the whole field dressing and caping out and doing all that stuff with the deer, but it's going to have to be at the right time because that's obviously not a quick and easy process.
Right.
It's a timely thing.
Yeah, it takes a long time, and I'm personally meticulous because I like to have everything prepared as much as possible from when I'm gonna clean it up in the
Hmm.
kitchen.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I definitely take probably half a day just to get one deer ready to
Y-
go.
It it can be, and of course, I'm not the guy that's going to go out there and fill tags and all that stuff. We need. I'm a family of four, and we eat it, but we don't. It's not one of those things where I got four chest freezers out there, so it's almost you have to relearn it every year, or
Yeah,
you learn something new every year when you're getting into it, and when you're not. You're prepared, but you're not prepared. So when I come home, when I do field dress them here at the house or um, field dress them in the field, it can be a little challenging depending on the environment and what's going on at that moment.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Especially if your wife's expecting to do something else in the afternoon.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Which is normal.
Yeah. Um, all right. So diving into the faith-based side of this, where do
Yeah.
you see God in the outdoors?
Really everywhere. I mean, like we were driving in town tonight, and it's not outdoors really related, but we were driving in, and we were going to get Chick-fil-A tonight, and the way the sun was setting and the sky, it was lit up like there was like the sky was on fire with the clouds because of rolling in and everything. It was pretty stinking wild. And so I tell my wife as we're riding in, I'm like, only God can do something like this. Like this is nothing anyone else can do. So you have to enjoy it and see it for what it is. But when we get out there, when I'm alone and I can get out there an hour before legal light or any of those things, it's just to see the woods wake up, to experience the squirrels and the birds and that first deer, and they come through and they're breathing the smoke out or the steam comes out of their nose. It's just so many things, and I get lost and I open up in prayer, and it's just one of those things where everything, every piece of it, is where I see God. And when I'm hunting out in anything, even when I'm fishing, it's just I can tell I have peace with it, and it's my alone time. Of course, I got two kids and a wife and a full-time job, and we play ball and all those things. So the hustle and bustle and the chaos of life is intense at times. So when I get out there and just be alone, it's almost like I can audibly hear him.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely a place to go
No
to
doubt,
listen.
no doubt.
You
Yeah,
ever tried reading a Bible in the tree stand?
I have not. I used to have it on my phone, but it was I try to hunt high,
Yeah,
in the tree. Um,
I hope so.
and so looking down, it messes. I don't know what. Maybe it's just me, but my equilibrium gets a little crazy, and I always feel like I'm leaning a little bit further or something like that. But no, if I'm in a ground blind, I'm not opposed to it at all. But in a tree stand, it's one of those things where I'd rather just have that conversation and feel it and just get in that spiritual meditation state.
Yeah, yeah, it's I definitely had to kind of reteach myself to be in that state.
Yeah,
I was going through a little time where I was guilty of just being on social media on my phone, and it's very possible, like the memes you see where the deer is just staring at you from the side and you're on your phone. That was probably happened
feel
to
like
me.
it. Feel like it all the time, man. Because
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I still get caught up in social media. Those lulls in the morning time can be brutal. I hunted last Thursday when we had all that rain all day long.
Hmm.
It was pretty much an all day sit for me in a ground blind, and that was brutal. And so my phone almost died just because I was doing the
Yeah.
old scroll, scroll, scroll. And I'm with you. I'm like, I guarantee you, there's a deer just looking at me like, look at this idiot.
Right.
But one good thing about this past Saturday, and it was one of those. It's funny what a year can do for Easton. and me in that spiritual sense of the hunting is when we found this deer, I let him do some tracking. And so obviously there was good blood, and I was like, "You do it." And I videoed him on my phone as he went in and broke the wood line, and there was the deer sitting just 10 yards in the wood line. So we drug it out, and we started praying. We pray before, but when you harvest something, we'll pray over the animal because it's God's creation, and it's
Mm-hmm.
just one of those things where that animal gave its life, and we're not just out here target practicing on live animals. We don't just shoot them and leave them, and we just try to appreciate what it is. And so it was a really good feeling as we were praying, as I was praying. He was sitting beside me, of course, but then he just fell into my arms and he just started crying. And I kept praying and I kept praying, and we finished the prayer, and I looked at him and I said, "What's going on, buddy? Are you okay?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm just so excited, and I can't stop this feeling." And I said, "Well, welcome to it, my man, because the goosebumps never go away." But I said, "Do you want to pray over it?" And I took a picture of him, and he was just laying over it with his hands on it, and his head was down. And whether he was praying or not, I don't know. It was just kind of one of those moments I just took in, and you could just tell that he was appreciative of what it was this time. It wasn't just the excitement of shooting a gun or doing something my dad does or doing something my dad watches on TV or any of those things. It was you could see it. It was a little bit different with his body language and his attention to it. It meant a little bit more this time than it did last time.
Yeah,
And
that's
so I
awesome.
could really appreciate that. Yeah, but the crying during prayer it was definitely a heartfelt thing.
Yeah, I love hearing stories like that. Um, there was one time my son, not an outdoor story, but sort of in the same realm. He had broken a glass and he sliced his hand open. I think I might have actually set the story on one of the other podcast episodes. But he was so panicked about the wound, the open wound in his hand because it was pretty deep, and we
Oh,
basically had to explain to him the gift that God's given us is our body's ability to heal itself. So there was another time later on when we were trying to tell him not to play on a balcony because if he fell over, he would get hurt really bad. And his response was, "Why does it matter? God would heal me." And I'm
oh,
like, I love the faith, but let's not test it.
that's it. That's
Yeah.
yeah. That's pretty good. But isn't it crazy the kid's wisdom, the thought
Yeah.
process that just came off just like that? It's pretty wild.
Yeah. Yeah. It's fun when you're planting the seeds like that, and seeing it grow within their own mind.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what I'm really trying to do. The guys I hang around with and I hunt, they got small boys, roughly the same age as Easton. So we're all trying to. There's so many other paths with and I'm not trying to be that guy, but the electronics, and there's so many other things that could be tying them up, even at this age. So it's one of those things where I'm really trying to keep him outside, keep him in the outdoors, keep him interested in these things because I know at some point he's going to want to do something else. I'm going to be like, "You want to
Hmm.
go fishing?" He's going to say no. I'm going to say, "Hey, it's hunting season. You ready to go?" And he's gonna be like, "I don't want to go. I want to sleep in." I know that day's coming. It did for me. It will for him. It does for most. Hopefully, it'll come back around full circle. Hopefully, it never happens. But the reality of it is, it probably will. But you're right. Planting the seed, the spiritual seed, and just the sticking with what God has given us to continue to enjoy it and soak it up because it is something that can go away and it will one day.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely a constant battle at least as an adult, to kind of bring yourself, humble yourself, and kind of remind yourself that you can't do it on your own, and it's very easy to stray.
Yeah. Yeah.
Got to stay on the path, and that was why I brought up the social media story because I felt like I was that aspect was almost getting dull for me for a little bit. So I was like, all right, I'm going to go up there. I'm just going to try reading the Bible.
Yeah.
And so I'm doing that. And I basically hadn't, I don't know, it was the fourth or fifth time I'd gone hunting and I hadn't seen a single deer. It was just quiet. And I'm in the middle of reading, and then something just told me, stop reading and look up. And there was just three doe standing right there, about, I don't know, 50, somewhere between 50 and 75 yards away. And I'm like, oh. So I ended up putting the Bible down. I don't even remember anything from the chapter because I got so distracted. And I finally took that doe.
There you go.
So I was able to get meat after some frustrating quiet hunts in the tree stand. But I thought, you know what? I probably took it. It's a good idea, but took it in the wrong direction. Focus on just sitting with God. The reading is for when I'm kind of home. I try to read probably about 2 to 3 chapters in the morning to kind of start my day because it helps spiritually to just begin that way. So that's for that time. The tree stands for just sitting there and opening up and listening.
Yeah. So we have a routine at bedtime, and it's opposite. Our mornings are crazy, but I bought him a book, and it's 365 Bible bedtime stories.
Mm-hmm.
And so we'll sit in there and we read one each night. And it's not every night thing. Sometimes we forget. Sometimes he goes to bed. Sometimes it's just not the right time. But it's one of those things where we might not get to read in the morning, but we try to reflect on it in the morning.
Mm.
And it has, you read the passage, and then it has 2 questions at the end pertaining to the passage. And so we try to do that at night, and then the next morning or at some point the next day, we try to revisit that and reflect on it a little bit just to see, did it pertain to life right now, or is it, what do you see this? And he's smarter than I give him credit for, but he's obviously still a 6-year-old child. So it's still sometimes just silly answers or, hey, Dad, look at the airplane on the way to school. And it's going just like that. But I can appreciate it. And it's fun to look and just see, you can almost look at him and see that thought. Wow, you can see his wheels turning. So I need to get into the morning read for myself for sure. And I do need to get more into, of course, you're not expecting to see deer that first 30 minutes or an hour that you get in there because we've made so much noise getting to and from,
Right.
or getting to and getting set up. So it would be a great opportunity. And I need to be more disciplined about that because you're right. And I have I don't know if I'm the only guy, but like the night before, I'm still a 6-year-old kid the night before season open, the night before gun, muzzle loading, each season that comes or turkey season. Like I just manifest so much stuff. I'm like, I'm gonna go in there tomorrow and he's gonna be over here and I'm gonna call 3 times and he's gonna call back and da 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 da. I'm just manifesting it all.
Right.
And those are the worst hunts I've ever been on. I mean, it's like every time you just get smashed. And it's truly humbling. And it's one of those things, the day you go in there and you're like, you know what, I'm just going to go out here and I'm just going to enjoy the woods waking up, or I'm going to put the woods to bed, or I'm just going to go out here and sit for a few hours because life is crazy at home right now. Let's just go out here and just sit. And you looked up. A lot of times that's when I see the most deer, or I see something really cool that I haven't seen before. It's just one of those things where it's like, see, just let it be, man. Just enjoy what is and what isn't. Just enjoy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a fun experience when you're just sitting kind of watching. If you don't notice the gradual increase in light, you're probably distracted by something else.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the first time I went up, so that the place that I normally go, there's a lake. It's probably somewhere between 75 and 100 yards from the stand, so they usually go right to left in front of me. But the first time I went up there, I knew the lake was there, but I couldn't quite remember where it was. So there's a section of rocks, and I'm like, is that like the reflective water? And like I'm just piecing things together as more and more light comes in, and I'm like almost like seeing like a painting come to life. You see in the artist's draw, oh, that's what that line's gonna be.
Yeah. And it's great. How many times I don't, and I hope this has happened to you as well. But you'll look and you're like, I look at that deer. I can't wait for it to get light enough for me to see that deer, and the light comes up and it's a tree stump.
Yeah.
And but you're exactly right. Tonight seeing that skyline, it's like, man, this how can you not be a believer? How can you not believe God is real? How can you not see this?
Hmm.
And actually believe that God created all of this. But hunting is a different beast with it. It really is amazing to see some stuff happen out there in the woods.
Right. Yeah. I've had the opposite happen too, where I came right up on. I think there was at least three deer bedded down. I don't know, 20 yards from my tree stand, and they're looking
Hmm.
right at me as I'm walking up the trail. So I know they see me, but they didn't
Right.
run the whole time I'm getting set up, and I climb up in the tree stand, and I turn off my headlamp and I just stare at that spot. Like as soon as I have legal light, and they get up to wander away, I'm gonna take one, and regardless of me staring through the darkness, didn't hear a sound. They just disappeared. They just weren't there. So I'm convinced that deer hooves are somehow silent. Just they make no sound at all.
That's 100% right. They just
Yeah.
float out of sight.
Yeah.
I'm with you. But it's crazy because a couple weeks ago when it was so dry, it was incredible how loud the deer were walking through. I mean, it was.
On the
I'm
leaves,
with
you
you on
mean?
the. I'm with you on the silent. But yeah, the leaves were just crunching. I'm like, my goodness! Like either you're silent and I never hear you, or it sounds like four people walking through the woods because they were just dragging through the leaves when they were so crunchy and dry.
Yeah. I don't always look too, and I probably should. But there's a lot of squirrels where I
Hmm.
hunt, so and they're the ones usually making the noise.
Yeah.
So it can be. I guess they're more of like kind of hot in between spots, but or like a skitter almost. Um, and deer aren't necessarily running through. So I guess you can
Right.
somewhat tell the difference if you can hear the crunch.
Well, it was crazy. The other day, I got really fooled big time, and it was I was hunting a little brush thicket, and a coyote had ran around and went behind me. He skirted me big time. I would have shot that sucker, but he skirted me 60 plus, and I was bow hunting, so I couldn't do anything. I just had to watch, unfortunately. But he went on around me, and I don't know if he was trying to get downwind of me or just trying to catch the wind in his face. It was a really windy morning. And so it went, and I said, if he gets close to a deer, he'll get them up, and they'll obviously move, and they like standing in this field. So right behind this ladder stand, I got in silent. It was the wildest thing because the squirrel was walking on all fours. It wasn't that.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't none of that. They were actually just. You don't see it very often on the ground floor or on the wood floor, but he was just walking on all floors, just doing his thing. And for the life of me, I was had my release on the D loop. I was ready to go, man, because I just knew something was coming under my tree stand. And then I seen that thing, and I said, "Oh my goodness!" I already had my adrenaline going. I was already speeding everything up. Everything was happening real fast, and then I see that fuzzy tail, and I'm like, "No way!" And so, and then that hunt, we didn't see anything. So
Yeah.
now, Do you hunt public land or do you hunt private?
No, I've been very blessed. When we first moved here, I made friends with a rancher that sells meat from cattle that he raises, and he raises pigs. And this last year, he started raising chickens. Um, and I couldn't tell you the why. He and his wife, I guess, fell for our family. My wife was pregnant at the time with our youngest, and they took good care of us. And I since have bought a quarter cow from him. I don't know, probably every 6 or so months.
Yeah.
And from it was like the second day of having met him, he invited me onto his property to hunt. So I've been hunting deer there ever since, and I'm always very grateful. I ask permission every time I go. Try to clean up everything that I can. It's
Right.
one of those things that I'm sure could disappear on me at any moment. So I want to be as appreciative as I can that I'm being
Right.
blessed with such a gift. And it's only like 10 to 15 minutes from my house. So I don't
Oh,
even have to
that's
go.
perfect.
Yeah, I don't even have to go very far. So it's seriously a blessing, and
Nice.
I'm loving it as long as I am welcome there.
Now, does it have everything you're wanting, like big game and turkey and all the things, or?
It has turkey. I'm actually curious. I can tell that there's a roost not far from the main stand that I use. And I saw them last year. I saw a whole bunch of them pop down from, I don't know if it was from that one, but it's at least that area. And they just circled me for probably like 45 minutes while I was waiting for deer. I didn't end up going this last year. That's actually when I took that trip to California when I went, not to go fishing, but I went fishing on that trip that I mentioned.
Right.
And since the turkey season's so short, that just taking that one vacation took up a big chunk of that, so I missed my opportunity. I'm hoping to be able to just kind of sit in that spot as often as I can this next year
Yeah.
for turkey season. There's been some other places I've heard about to try land on, but I haven't really ventured out as far as that goes. And then there's a place by me that does. I think they have a lake. It's like an outfitter, so they have waterfowl, some pheasant, and then they have different. I think they have both dove and I don't think it's quail. I don't remember what the other one is. Anyways, I've been wanting to check that place out, but I haven't had a chance yet.
That was pretty cool
So,
to
but
have. I mean, for you to be able to get on all those possible wing shoots.
yes, yeah. I have a suspicion, except this, well, I guess the small ones could be too. I have a suspicion that a lot of their stuff is probably farm raised and released before the hunts because it's an
Right.
outfitters.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's pretty close to my house, and I do love pheasant to eat, so I can't complain too much.
There you go. No, what you're originally from California?
Yes.
Okay. What brought you to North Carolina?
Um, well, California in general was deteriorating.
Yeah.
Like the state itself is beautiful. And for the longest time, I kind of had a superiority complex where like my parents would tell me it's the best state and all that. But yeah, I mean, it went downhill. The homeless thing never got taken care of, and it just got worse and worse. And where I lived was Orange County, which they used to call the bubble. The bubble. So if you left Orange County, you basically saw the real world kind of thing. So it was
Oh,
almost like a false sense of security.
okay.
And I can't remember when specifically, but essentially that bubble burst, and a lot of the stuff that was like in Los Angeles and coming all the way down from San Francisco ended up just kind of deteriorating the area that I grew up in. So my wife and I, when we started having kids, we're looking at leaving for a while. My background is actually in film, so I was looking at places like Atlanta and things like that at the time. And it was just one thing after another. We felt like, nope, the God doesn't want us there. God doesn't want us there. And at one point, I kind of gave up on the idea of leaving, and then it literally showed up in our backyard per se. The public library, which was like right down the street from my house, started having different homeless people just living in their cars and stuff in the parking lot and doing drugs in the park. Tried to contact the city councilman who said he couldn't do anything about it. I knew the police couldn't do anything about it because I have police officers in my family. Um, and so she's like, pick a place. We're leaving next year, essentially. So I just had to make a decision, prayed about it, found a relocation specialist who mentioned North Carolina, which wasn't even on my radar at the time. He recommended some places, and my dad. I work with my father. My main business is a carpet cleaning business that my grandfather started. So he and
Okay.
I came out to the Raleigh area, did some scouting to see if we could make it the business work here. And from that point, it was like one sign after another from God, almost like with big LED signs saying "Move here." I mean, just to give you some examples, like I guess to start, the people in California aren't necessarily as friendly. Where here, people in the grocery store checkout line want to know how you've been, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So we talked to a couple people like that, and the culture definitely felt different. And there was one guy we got in such a long conversation with, it delayed our agenda for the rest of the day. So we showed up to a supplier who we actually currently use now, just to ask them some questions. And there was a gentleman teaching a class there who is based in Atlanta and had actually previously taught an online class that we took recently. So we sort of knew him, like met him once on Zoom essentially, kind of thing. And the only reason we ran into him is because he was taking his lunch break, which we would have missed him had we showed up on the original timeline. We were going to be there. And like we're talking to him, we finally realize who he is, and he realizes who we are, and he's like, "Well, that's fortuitous." And then it was like the way that our day was just fitting together. It was like, this is not coincidence.
Yeah, man. Sometimes you just got to say, "But God."
Yeah, exactly. So things like that kept happening, and then I later came back with my wife, and there was a church that I'd done a bunch of research on churches, and there was one that my dad and I tried. I took my wife to that one toward the end of the trip with my wife, and the message really spoke to her, so that was an influence. We ended up going to the town's Christmas parade that same day, and the pastor that just gave that message was right behind us in line for hot chocolate, and he talked to us for like 45 minutes. So it was, yeah, I mean, it was just like we were basically just being handed, like, this isn't obvious, like, don't turn this down, this isn't obvious, you guys need to move here. So
Right.
I know I'm here for a purpose. I'm definitely, I'm heavily involved with the church now. I don't specifically know what that purpose is, but I'm just holding on, enjoying my ride as
Yeah.
God kind of points me in the right direction.
Hey.
So that's in a little bit more than a nutshell. That's why North Carolina.
That's pretty cool, man. That's a good story. And like you said, just along for the ride. And as long as you're riding with him, you're going the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
That's good, man.
Yeah.
So how long have y'all been here?
Let's see. We moved March of 23, so it's
Okay.
a little more than a year.
Sweet.
I think. Yeah. Right. Because we're in 20. Yeah. So I'll be coming up in a year or two soon.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. That's cool that North Carolina wasn't on your radar and everything just worked out.
Yeah.
Or is working out.
Yeah. It's definitely been a fun journey. There's been some hardships though, I will say, because like at the beginning of this year, my daughter was diagnosed with asthma and she ended up in the hospital on oxygen. So that started off January fun. And then my wife had to have her gallbladder removed in February. So she ended up in the hospital.
Yeah.
And so it became a running joke like, well, who's going to get the next month?
Yeah. That's so I'm assuming everything's good though.
Yeah, we're all good
January,
now.
February, so we're okay.
Yeah, and my youngest was born the October before, so it was, we don't really count that as part of the trouble, but we definitely I'm sure looked familiar to the staff at the hospital.
I understand it. Well, I'm glad everything's good. I'm glad everything's still moving in the right direction.
Just want to get through this next January with no issues. Hopefully, it was a fluke.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt.
So yeah, just looking forward to, I guess, seeing what else we have going on for us. I lost my train of thought there. I'll probably edit this part out. Let's see. So you had reached out to me. I think it was you just sent me a direct message. Was there something particular or specific about the idea of this podcast that made you want to come on?
To be quite honest, I was thinking about starting a podcast for kind of the same thing. When I saw your post, it's kind of goes along with what you said. It just something was there. It was like I looked at Facebook at this specific time and saw this specific post because I was like, how cool would it be? Easton the other morning, and I've been thinking about it for a while. I just I don't have the courage. I don't know how to get this stuff started. So it was one of those where, yeah, it'd be a great idea, but yeah, some other time. So he likes to be in front of it. So he wants to do the little morning intros before we go hunting. He wants to talk about it. And when we plan our food plots, he just wants to do it. And I'm like, man, this would be cool just to have him on, have other dads and kids or whatever on, and just kind of have a little community about this where I'm sure there's other guys like you and I in these groups on Facebook. It just gets lost in the fray with a bunch of this stuff going on because there's just so much happening, so many members, so much.
Yeah.
So when I saw it, I was like, absolutely, I'm in, I'm on it. I might not have the podcast, but I'd love to be on the podcast. Maybe speak to somebody or maybe meet some people that have similar situations or similar stories or just you just never know who's next door or who's the next road over that may need it or hear it or it may bridge some relationships um for him, for us, for everybody. I mean, you just never know who you're going to run into or who might see a post.
Right. Yeah, and I don't necessarily see this turning. I mean, it would be great if it turned into something like the Meat Eater podcast and show, but
Right.
I'm sure that's a pipe dream. But I think the next, like once I get this rolling, I think the next step up that I envision is to kind of do these, not. I mean, I want to do them as much in person as possible, but at the same time, I want to try to get them consistent. So doing them over Zoom like this is a good convenience, especially for time's sake. But getting out and maybe like setting up like a hunt with people and kind of
Hmm.
doing like a full a piece, like the interviews could take place in a hunting lodge and then you show the actual hunt the next day and things like
Right.
that. A lot more involved, but that's definitely something I'd love to figure out how to do sooner than later.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I listen to a lot of podcasts, and of course, during hunting season, that's all I'm listening to. For a lot of times, I'm driving around a lot during the day, so I have podcasts that release on certain days, and I'm just glued to them. And some of them, there's very few that me and Easton can listen to together because there's one in North Carolina, and it's a lot of cussing, it's a lot of
Yeah.
stuff that I can't really let him listen to. I don't want to hear it myself, but I would never let him listen to it because it's not for his ears. Um, so to hear a podcast and it has faith in it and it's just telling good, clean stories or good, clean conversation, I'm all about it 100%. So, but yes, the whole thing you were talking about, it, getting together and hunting together and having the whole story and then the hunt itself that would be icing on the cake, of course.
Yeah. Hopefully, it wouldn't be too difficult to coordinate. But so, where you are, is your hunting area pretty close to you?
This one is, yes. So me and a buddy and his dad and his brother got a lease effective January 1st. Now we didn't have turkey hunting rights to half of it, and now we will from now on, but we didn't have it for this past spring.
Hmm.
And so luckily for me, it is 8 minutes away.
Okay.
And the property that we were killing all this or had the opportunity to kill a bunch of turkeys, we really only killed four, but because the season's so short and
Yeah.
I don't believe in just killing everything just because you can or because it comes in. Sometimes it's fun just to watch them. That's directly across the street from my road, so that one was really in my back pocket. But she won't allow anybody to hunt there anymore. I do have one that's about 45 minutes away. That one's a little tougher. I usually hunt that one by myself if I'm going in the morning or if it's in the afternoon. It makes it rough, especially early season during bow season.
Right.
But yeah, I'm trying to, even if I have to pay for the leases, I'm trying to stay as close as I can.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. There was one that was, I think it was about 45 minutes. And they mostly leased out to veterans because they had a lot of turnover.
Yeah.
But I think it was, I don't remember how much it was. It wasn't very, it was a couple hundred for like a year. And that's actually what I was initially going to do. And then I was offered the ranch. So I haven't looked back.
Right. Absolutely. Well, and that's the only thing. It's everybody's so hush hush and so secretive and all those things. And I get there's a reason for it, but at the same time, the way I grew up, once I was able to do things and have a say and got a little bit older than those initial hunts, it was more of a camaraderie thing. I didn't have a problem bringing people or showing people or introducing people or any of those things. That's what it was about to me. We did have a hunt camp, not a hunt camp, but if anybody killed anything or the property owner would have the wood stove going in his detached garage where he worked on stuff. And so we'd all go over there after the hunt. That was kind of our meeting place. And so that was the excitement for me. And of course, that was many, many years ago now. And so now it's you hunt, you get in the truck, you go home, and everybody's going crazy again. It's all about this.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where it's tough. I love the camaraderie side of things and the fellowship.
Yeah. There was I think it was a meme or something where a guy's like, he asked a friend, he said, oh, actually, I think it was like one of those where you see a copy of a text conversation.
Oh yeah.
And he's like, you want to go fishing tomorrow? And the guy responded, what time will we get back? And he said, never mind.
Yes. That's pretty good. That's exactly right though.
Yeah.
And Easton's like that now. If I'm like, he's like, can we go fishing tomorrow after school? And I'm like, well, buddy, we got. He's like, and you could just tell he's slumped back in his seat and just huffing because he knows I'm getting to say, well, I got to be back, man. Mama's gonna have dinner ready, and I got work to do, and all those things. And I hate to say it, but I mean, Monday through Friday, it's tough, and especially now that it gets dark so soon and it's cooling off, and it's tough. So I
Yeah.
can tell I'm breaking his little heart because it all is about I don't have enough the time, hours, and I kick myself. And once I say it out loud, it really frustrates me. But we understand that we have the work has to be done, and we are married and there are other kids involved, and so
Right.
we have to compromise through those things.
Yeah, I for that same reason, I haven't been on any night hunts. Um,
Mm.
Although it's perfectly available. And the trail cam I have out there, I only ever see a buck on it at night, so I probably should.
Right.
And I may now. A buddy turned me on to a guy that he does taxidermy, but he wanted to do it full time, so he started doing processing.
Yeah.
And he actually prefers the entire deer. Doesn't matter to him if it's been gutted yet or not. And he's in the same town as the ranch.
Okay.
So I'm thinking, yeah, now's my opportunity. I can go night hunting and I can just take it straight to him.
Yeah. It's, does he coyote hunt? Is that why he prefers it full, or does he want the cake because of taxidermy stuff, or do we know?
The impression I got is the system he has for hanging everything.
Mm,
He doesn't like what he calls cooler meat, and I think it's
yeah.
because he wants to be able to hang the whole thing and slide it in so everything's organized. The one piece I dropped off a couple of legs, but I had processed everything else, so there wasn't much for him to store.
Right.
And so he didn't mind taking it, but he was telling me like he doesn't like turning people down, but he would prefer to do just the entire deer to keep his system organized. And he says it's less to do with the workload on him and more to do with he has to take care of that cut up stuff first before he can get to the hanging stuff. So he has to delay people that have dropped their stuff off like 2 weeks ago.
Right. Well, I've heard a lot of guys say too that not everybody cleans their or
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they
takes their
get it.
deer out right. So it's got a lot of hair on the meat that's in the cooler, and they do have
Yeah,
to address it pretty quick. So they'd rather just bring me the whole deer. If nothing else, just gut it and bring it to me. If you want to save a little bit of money, but just bring it to me so I can hang it in my cooler, my walk-in cooler.
right. I've always been
So
curious, like what are they doing to get it so dirty?
Yeah, I don't know. But I can say that I've done it myself. Is
Have you?
if I've tried to do it, I'm like, might. But I try to, like you were saying, you're very meticulous. Sometimes I'm like, man, I shot a deer. It's bow season. It's dark. It always happens on an evening hunt, and so
Right.
I'm trying to cape it out. And I look at the meat. I'm like, good night. It's like I just turned the hide inside out on it.
Yeah.
It's but and I don't care how hard you wash it off, it ain't never coming off. And so
Right.
I've been in that position a few times, but now I'm like, if I can find a processor and get them to do it, I know how they prefer it, and it's obviously easier on everybody.
Yeah, and that goes along with my concerns about doing a night hunt. But now that I have somewhere I can drop it off, I'll probably give that a shot. So, um, well, is there anything else that you wanted topics you wanted to discuss, or anything you wanted to say?
No, man, I think this has been great. I really enjoyed it. This is my first time ever doing something like this, so it was good talking to you, and I do like getting other people's perspective and hearing stories and your thought process behind things isn't mine. And of course, we see it through Facebook all the time or other podcasts or social media platforms. So it was good to get on here and have this conversation with somebody that I don't necessarily know, but we're very like minded. And sorry if that went off. My phone was my battery's dying, but
Oh, good time to
it's one of
wrap it
those.
up.
Yeah. So, like-minded, spiritual. We got kids. We're trying to introduce them to the outdoors and those things. So it's good to have that conversation with another dad.
Yeah, absolutely. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we'll have to have you back on at some point and maybe get involved with one of those actual hunt projects if I can get that going.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I can swing it at all, you're more than welcome to come and chase a bird or chase a deer here. I can't promise you anything about what you what you'll see or what you'll get, but again, I'm open. I'm not open to everybody, but I'm open to a few people, and I love the fellowship and time together in the outdoors with another dad and son or another dad or something. Just shake it up a little bit.
Really appreciate that.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on, and
Yeah, man.
feel free to reach out anytime, and talk to you some more later.
Absolutely, man. Take care.
Have a good night.
Thank you for tuning in. If you like this content, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button. And if you want to join the adventure, you can pick yourself up a nice hat or a camping coffee mug and brew yourself some coffee right above a nice little fire at greatoutdoorspodcast.com. Oh, kind of grainy.